Welcome to Christie's 48th birthday podcast.
Yay!
And I have no idea what we're going to talk about. But we have Christy Ponjikin, Michelle Ponjikin, Stevens Ponjikin.
Christy Michelle Stevens Ponjikin.
Yes.
At your service.
And we have her dear youngest sister. You want to introduce yourself?
Of course. I am Amy Elizabeth Stevens Johnson.
There we go.
So for the record, I can't see Amy Elizabeth Stevens
I can't
Johnson.
see you guys either.
And I'm the only one doing the audio monitoring here. And she sounds exactly like her sister on the microphone. So there's that.
There we go.
So do you remember every time I would answer the phone trying to sound like her?
Yeah, she got me a couple times.
I tried so hard.
She definitely got me a couple times. But usually if I listen intently, which as you fellows know, sometimes it's not our greatest skill, that becomes difficult.
Yeah. Or I'm just that good.
Or when you get older, you just kind of lose your hearing and literally
Hey, now.
can't hear.
Don't be throwing darts now, okay?
No throwing darts.
So also making an appearance occasionally will be our very needy dog. Right now she's not in camera, but no doubt she will be in this conversation.
Mhm.
So
Her name's Belle. She's sweet. And she loves Elizabeth. Too much. Anyway, so it's my birthday. And
Happy
I said,
birthday.
let's do something new. Let's make a podcast because we've been talking about it for a long
Happy
time.
birthday to you.
And so we were talking.
Happy birthday to you.
So we were out to
Happy birthday, dear Christy. Only
So-
reason I'm singing is because I'm not monitoring my voice right now. So
I appreciate that song. Very good. Very good.
Beautiful. So I was saying we were out to eat. They decided, well, because Elizabeth and I stayed up till like 4 o'clock this morning. And then we were sleeping till like 10-ish. And Dan's like, hey, do you want to just go out for breakfast? I was like, that sounds lovely. And we started to talk about some things. And I said, hey, let's just make this into a podcast later. So we talked about a whole lot of things.
I was going to say, what were we actually talking about?
We talked about nurture versus nature.
That's what it
We
was.
talked about changing our
Mhm.
DNA.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about AI.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not going to be the one to talk about AI. I can tell you that right now. So
we shouldn't
just-
talk about AI.
we shouldn't.
No.
Mm-mm. Okay. So what do we want to talk about then? This is just something fun I wanted to do. Do you guys have a topic you want to cover or do you want me just to start? Oh, and then we saw a billboard yesterday that was like, okay.
All right. So I'll frame it up.
Okay.
So the billboard said something to the effect of hope
Allows me.
allows me to be brave. And I opened my yap trap and said, I do not agree with that. I think it is completely backwards. I said that, in my humble opinion, hope is evidence-based. In other words, I think what I concluded is that it's circumstantial. Hope is circumstantial. In other words, hope is based on what the circumstances are in your life, whereas bravery will face complete hopelessness and uncertainty and allow you to move forward. And so what I came to my conclusion was that bravery could lead you to hope.
And I completely disagreed.
Yeah,
So that's where we started.
it's her birthday, so I won't argue.
No, we can
It's a healthy
it's not
discussion.
arguing, it's just
Our
sharing
kids,
our
our
feelings.
kids thought it was arguing.
Yeah.
Well, kids, you know,
Yeah.
I don't think kids understand a lot of stuff sometimes.
What's your
So-
thought on that, Elizabeth? Before I did say I disagreed with him too. It was like I disagreed at first and we talked through it and I could see where he was coming from, but I also was like, because I had to bring faith into it, of course, because
Right.
we are spiritual beings.
So what was the saying again? Exact. Well, what you can remember.
So this billboard said, hope allows me to be brave. And I
Okay.
said that was backwards.
That
I would say
bravery
more-
allows you to have
yeah,
hope.
exactly.
And I disagreed with that because I feel like in order to take action, you have to not feel hopeless. And so then I went to faith without works is dead and the scripture about faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Mhm.
I think that without hope, I feel like you have nothing. Without hope and faith, you have nothing. So then we got into this conversation about hope is different than faith. And I agree with that. I just feel like if you're hopeless, you're less motivated to move forward or show any sign of bravery.
But is that moving forward even in hopelessness, not bravery?
Yeah, so that was my point is
So
what
that sounds very deep.
what helps you move
You know what I
forward
mean?
is bravery.
So if you're standing on a cliff, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, these views are beautiful." But you have to go to the edge of the cliff to see the views. Are you not? So at what point does it go from hope to bravery? Are you hoping that you don't fall off the cliff? But what does your actions do? Moving closer to the edge and allowing you to see the beauty, that's called bravery. That's taking without even having to think about it, right? Because if you're at this beautiful place, say Grand Canyon, and they're like, only in this spot can you see where the sun hits the rocks and it glistens and it bounces back and forth. Are you going to sit there and think, oh, well, I hope I don't fall off the cliff before I move a little closer? No, you're going to innately be like, oh, I want to see this beauty. And you're going to go. And it's just that bravery, that courage to just move.
So I think it depends on the mindset and the circumstance then, because like there have been many times in my life where situations have, that's a great analogy that you use, by the way, and I can totally see where I could see that. So what I would say is that it depends on the situation, I guess, because there have been situations in my life where I have felt like it was a hopeless situation. And it basically zaps me of all my motivation because I can't even have a vision to hope for better in that situation because I'm in such a stuck place. So it's not about, to me, it doesn't feel like about being brave. It's about having no motivation, feeling like why bother?
But you still bother. You still do it. So that it's an innate, it's something within you that you, our body wants to always do better, be better, right?
But when you're dealing with other people and other situations that dealing with other people, you can't control that. You can't control that outcome.
So are you saying that your hope? So you put hope.
Okay, all right.
So you put hope within someone else because you can't control them. So you hope that you put the hope in them for them to have bravery. Is that what you're saying? Kind of.
Well, I think the question is that really kind of made the difference for me is one is a choice, one is not. Bravery is a choice. You choose to be brave.
But is it a second thought? Or is it something that you just innately do?
Well, I think it's like any skill, right? I would call bravery, I don't know if skill is the right word, but being brave is a choice. And the more you choose to be brave, the easier it is to be brave. Whereas hope to me, again, that's why I called it circumstantial. You tend to have hope based on what is in front of you. So
hope is a choice too then?
No, it's not necessarily a choice. That's what I'm saying is, so going back to our cliff analogy, bravery would face the cliff because you have no idea how you're going to get across or if you get too close to the edge. Whereas hope, in the most easiest analogy, would be there's a bridge or a fence. So you put your hope in that fence that it's going to hold you, or you're about to cross a bridge over that valley. So it's circumstantial in that it's based on what's the reality on the ground, if you will, in front of you.
So then going to nurturing and naturing, can you nurture a consistency of hope and bravery where it kind of like collides together?
I think
I'm thinking of this.
I think
that's a
bravery leads to hope, right? If you choose to be brave, then going back to the spiritual, the most famous, to me, bravery and faith have a correlation. Maybe you could even make the case that they're the same thing, but
because I think that hope and
faith.
hope and faith.
Yeah.
are connected more than hope and bravery.
Connected, yes, not the same thing. Though I would say bravery is a secular description of faith, right?
Mhm.
And not to get all spiritual on us, but I preached a message called "Truth About Faith," really trying to prove the point or illuminate to people's consciousness the point that everybody has faith. Some people secularize it and call it things like bravery. My point is the main faith scripture that defines what faith is. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. So if you replace the word faith with the word bravery, and in the secular context, bravery is the thing that produces hope. Can I get an amen from the birthday girl?
Amen. Oh, go ahead, birthday girl.
So I can see that how when you are brave, that produces hope.
I would agree with that.
So when you are brave, oftentimes you would say that you're brave because you've taken some type of action. So because you know that you've done this before, let's say you're applying for a job or you're creating something that you've never created before. Like let's say this podcast, I think we're kind of brave to do this. I don't know. But if it's helpful to other people and we just enjoy doing it, who cares? I mean, we want to
Yeah.
be helpful to other people, but if we're not and we just enjoy doing it, it gives us hope to do it again, to do another one, or
Right.
to try again. So I think that bravery is required to take action. I don't think you can be brave and not do something with the bravery. We talked yesterday also about, so if you are not brave, the opposite would be what? Being a
Fear.
coward.
Mhm.
So we were talking about, I don't know, like, so are you a coward then if you don't exhibit bravery? But I think in the middle of hopelessness, it's hard to move forward sometimes. I've experienced this, unfortunately, several times in my life, especially for the
100%.
last couple of years. So how do you get courage? How do you have courage to to try to get yourself unstuck? I think this is, I'm almost saying something to myself as I say this. It's not oftentimes what we can do for ourselves.
Mhm.
But tell me what you think, Dan, because you were feeling something there. How do we get ourselves unstuck to have courage and bravery to take action? How do we do that? I thought you were feeling something.
I was gonna use a different technique to take the conversation a different way.
Oh, sure. Well, then we can do that. Elizabeth, do you have something to say about that? Then we can take it
Not
another
really.
way.
I think that in hopelessness, I think in time, like there's a season for everything, right? There's a reason and a season. I think in times of hopelessness, there's something that you're going to be able to learn from it. And I think the most important thing that you can do in those moments is just take the next step. Just move.
Which is so hard. That's my point.
It is,
It's so
but
hard
it's also
to do.
important.
What
And
what makes you take a next step? What's the thing?
well, I mean, if you're a hopelessness, hopefully you would be aware of why this feeling is there. Acknowledgement is a really important thing.
Like
Okay, I know that
awareness.
I'm hopeless. I know that this is what I'm feeling and this is why I'm feeling that way.
Mm.
Kind of speaking to the whole like nurturing thing. I think, and I'm not a doctor, so disclaimer, this is just my personal opinion, but I've seen people talk about how our brains are not made to be negative, to think negative ways. It's our society, it's how we nurture ourselves that we create these feelings, so to say. And so they were saying, like, if every morning you wake up and think of 3 happy things, chances are, statistically, your day is going to be better than the last day.
Like
Because
gratitude,
chances are,
right? Showing like a gratitude journal type
right.
of thing.
And you
yeah.
can literally change your, like Dan was saying, you can change your nature
Mhm.
by doing this every day and making it a habit that I'm not going to think negatively, I'm going to think positively. So if you're hopeless, obviously that's going to be really hard to do. But I think that the next step that is, how do you take that next step is realization, being okay that you're hopeless. I think that that's the thing that a lot of people miss is the acceptance it's okay that you're feeling that way. It's okay to have feelings. It's okay to kind of wallow in them, because not for a long time, but experience that, because that way you can grow from it, and then you have a story to tell. This is how hard it was, and it took me a little while to get through it, but I finally did. And now maybe you can help someone else who's in the same situation or similar situation. I don't know if that answered the question or not, but
Yeah. I mean, it's just all
I
good
can't see
food for
Dan's face. So
good food for
he's
thought.
probably rolling his eyes at me.
No, he's not at all.
No,
I thought you were going to be shorter so I could see like underneath.
this is the age-old problem in this office.
It's okay. I'm just
They
going to
won't.
I'm going to draw your face on the back
So
of the team.
what I think for me, the easy way to talk about this stuff is to think about the personal application. So who wants to share a time they felt like they were extremely brave, and then a time that they went from hopelessness to hopeful?
Are you looking at me because you think I have something that I need to share?
Also because I can't see anybody else.
Thank you. Do you have something, Elizabeth, off the top of your head?
I mean, ask the question again.
So I can answer this
go ahead, then
real
answer.
quick, but it's hopefully real quick. So I feel like our parenting journey is an area where we experienced huge hopelessness and huge bravery. So struggling with endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome, we were, trying to grow our family the traditional way for it's like 9 years, I think, going through lots of infertility treatments and all that stuff. Was very painful, very physically painful, mentally painful.
Emotionally draining.
Yeah, man, goodness gracious, it was so much.
Big time.
So that was like, that's a long time. And so in that one circumstance, yes, like, I mean, there's been many since, but yeah, so we exhibited bravery in that we said, why don't we become foster parents, And so, and that, I think to this day, I think being adoptive parents, I think is still a very brave thing to do.
You guys are
based on
stinking
our experiences,
superheroes.
So is that, you agree with that, right? So that, so that's an example. That's a very practical one.
Yeah, I think yeah, obviously that's a good one. But for me it's like what's more interesting is how and why do we get to a mental point where we're feeling brave, where we feel that whatever that is, whatever bravery in the technical sense is, how do we get to that spot to move forward? How does somebody, because obviously bravery is a positive thing in somebody's life. It's usually leads to good things for the most part. So how do people listening to us talk here muster up bravery? What is the mechanism to get there?
So it has to start in the mind, is what you're saying.
I was going to say.
It is a mindset for sure. Hopelessness is a mindset. Bravery is a mindset before it's anything else.
So maybe it goes back to having faith. Maybe those three components can't be singular, and they can't be, like you guys were kind of like saying they're kind of the same thing. Maybe faith is what drives you to faith in your circumstances, that you can come out of your circumstances. So maybe it's faith that pulls you from the hopelessness to have hope, to then have bravery, to act on what you have hope for or what you have faith in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So the Bible says without faith, it's impossible to please God.
Yeah.
So are we missing so much of who we were created to be because we're lacking? You say hope and faith are different. I think they're so interchangeable.
I think they're connected, is what I said. But
yeah. I think that I think faith is knowing that something's going to happen regardless.
Believing that something's
Believing
to the point of knowing.
Yeah, sure. And then hope is the uncertainty, but the thought of something happening. Does that? What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Ultimately, yeah, I don't have the answer. I don't know how somebody gets brave when they're crippled. Again, I was telling Christy when we were talking about this yesterday, I believe it was.
Mhm.
I don't like to use the word cowardice. That's
Mhm.
so almost derogatory. But
Mhm.
the lack of bravery or the lack of faith. Um, it's interesting when I made the connection in my mind that bravery and faith are kind of cousins, if you will, if not brothers,
Mhm.
because I truly believe we all display faith and bravery. I guess I can connect it. We all do. It's just sometimes misplaced and misguided.
Mhm.
So for me personally, what works is if I'm struggling with belief or faith, um, is
And you're
realizing
speaking not specifically like your faith in God. You're speaking about
yeah,
just your what are like
could be very specific. Sometimes let's take the spiritual and religious aspect out of it and just say, believing in yourself that you can do something, that you can accomplish something. Sometimes just examining, looking at yourself deep within and realizing that you're able to believe in other areas
Mm.
and you have no struggle believing in yourself. Again, going with that example in one area of life, but then in an opposite area, you're crippled in believing. So, you know, I'm an engineer, so I'd like to dissect things down to their simplest parts. And when I think about that, what's the difference in believing that I could, I'm a jujitsu brown belt. I practiced jujitsu for over 10 years. That, by all measures, is a very difficult thing to do. Most people, all the statistics say it's less than 1%. Yeah.
And I'm gonna say just for that, like
Mhm.
I had the bravery for you.
Yes. Thank you.
I literally took him in.
She was the
I
cat.
said, "You want to do this? We need to do this. You need to do this for yourself." So so people come alongside and have a role to play. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's yeah, for sure relevant. But I often look at an area like that in my life and know how I've pushed through, injury and old age. I'm 48. I've pushed through a lot and I continue training. And so if I can have the bravery or the belief to do that, really it's the same thing that I just need to redirect in other areas that I may be struggling. And I can't, in my mind, in my intellect, I cannot extract the difference, right? If I can believe in this area, why can't I believe in this other area? It shouldn't make a difference.
Mhm.
And so that's usually a motivator for myself. I don't know if that helps anybody else, but that works for me. I do a lot of self-talk.
I would say that it's
Self-encouragement.
often easier for us to believe in other people than it is for us to believe in ourselves.
100%.
Yeah.
So
I have a
what's
lot
up
of
with that?
I have a lot of examples that
Yeah, what's up with that?
Did I send you that coffee mug one?
Hmm,
It was
I
like a
don't know.
video. They were sitting in a coffee shop and they had their coffee cups.
Oh yes, yes.
And the guy was like, "Do you want some coffee?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, well, get you some." And he's like, "No, I can't." He's like, "You can't get coffee?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "No, I can't."
It wrecked me.
And so they kept going back and forth. And the guy's like,
Mhm.
"Just pour your coffee."
Mhm.
And he's like, "I can't." But he poured it for the other guy. And then he put it back down. The guy's like, "You just poured my cup. Why can't you pour your cup?" And he's like, I can't. I think we're really hard on ourselves a lot, more than we need to be. And it's kind of like looking through someone else's eyes, like take a walk in someone else's shoes kind of thing.
Mhm.
But kind of like put yourself in how people view you. Like for your birthday, I bet you've had so many people on Facebook say,
I haven't even checked.
"Happy birthday."
I haven't checked because I've just been enjoying you guys.
I have not checked either, but I'm sure that you have a lot of people. So, you know what I mean? Like everyone else can see how awesome you are. Why wouldn't you feel that awesomeness? Why wouldn't you allow yourself to see that for yourself? I know we can be our worst critic, but I think that it's important for us to take that stigma of criticism, make it beneficial, right? Constructive criticism, I think, is healthy. But I know that we all kind of struggle with that, looking at ourselves in a dullish light. But going back to what Dan was saying, I think that how to get to the points where you need to get to,
Mhm.
I think realization, and also, like you said, putting yourself around people who can help you, lift you up.
That's huge.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because you guys struggled with that stuff by yourselves. We had no idea
The
what you
infertility
guys were
stuff.
going through. Yes.
I didn't want to tell anybody because I just didn't want people like looking at my stomach and be like, "Ooh, is she pregnant? Is she fucking
Yeah.
pregnant?" Or
Yeah.
asking me questions and
Yeah.
every month me having to say no.
No.
It just would be too hard for me.
Yeah.
It
And
was
I
easier
get
for us
that.
to do it just on our own.
But
I
that
mean, keep
struggle,
it.
I mean, could you, like, going back, do you feel like you would change it? Like,
No.
you would have told a few people?
No.
You still would have done it
No,
exactly the same?
I think we did the right way.
It was hard enough to deal with, just with for your bike. And that's a unique example, I think, because it's so personal and it is very difficult because you're setting yourself up for failure, potential
Mhm.
failure every month
For
Mhm.
9 years.
for 9 years.
That's a long
And so,
time.
Yeah.
and that's hard enough in of itself. But when you open it up to other people, then it's no longer once a month. It's like multiple conversations.
Every single time they see
Yeah,
you.
And then you're
anytime.
faced
Yeah,
with
that's
that
true.
failure and
Yeah.
rejection and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
and you do. To my knowledge, I've never miscarried, but I know that's a huge loss. A lot of women have experienced that. But I feel like us not being able to conceive would be a loss as
Mhm.
well that I think I had to struggle through because it's like, why am I broken? Why?
Yeah.
So talking about being capable of things and incapable of things. I mean,
Mhm.
seemingly, I was incapable. I mean, we made some decisions because we were going to do IVF and all that stuff, but we had
Yeah.
to make some hard decisions about that as well. But who knows? It could have happened, but we're thankful for the way that it turned out for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, but that's a very specific topic.
But I do think that it's beneficial to have at least a few people that can kind of come around you and lift you up and help you. And
Generally speaking, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get the whole, certain circumstances, it does make things more difficult than they need to be because, it's already going to be hard. But
Yeah. So how do we want to close this out? I've got 5 minutes left before I'm going to the doctor on my 48th birthday. I wasn't even thinking. And I was like, yeah, I'll come in on the 9th. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. So how do we want to close this out? What are our takeaways? Is there anything that we've opened our mind to just in this brief conversation?
For me, I think, it's helpful. It was helpful. Who knew a little billboard on Route 421 in North Carolina could illuminate such deep philosophical musings. But I think recognizing the precursor for hope for me is indeed bravery or faith is a pretty powerful tool. If you think about it, it really gives you the ability to hopefully be more hopeful.
So there's one thing that's coming to mind based on what Elizabeth said about and what we talked about bringing someone along. There was a guy in the Bible who was like, I believe, help my unbelief to Jesus. So like, I don't know that you fully, maybe we put ourselves we have too high expectations of ourselves. Say we have to believe 100%. We have to be brave 100%. We have to take action 100%. Maybe it's not always going to be 100%, but it is still, like you said, one step forward at a time. I acknowledge I believe, but I have a lot of unbelief surrounding this circumstance. And like if this circumstance can get better or I can get through this circumstance. Okay. So I think there's varying levels of belief. Yeah. Okay. What do you have to say, Liz? I think we've got 3 minutes.
Closing thoughts. Last thought.
I agree. I think that that's a really good thing to move forward. Like, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to take that step. I may not believe completely, but I'm trusting. I think trust is a good thing.
There you go.
And then if you're praying about help me, God will send people in your direction to help. I think what I'm going to start doing is every moment I have a bravery moment, right? A moment of bravery, I'm going to stop and congratulate myself
Oh,
for
good.
being brave,
That's
because
great.
I don't think we think about how often we're brave. Getting behind the wheel of a car, that's bravery to drive because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think in the little wins, bigger wins come to pass. So
Very
Absolutely.
good. That's
I'm
such
going to
good
start to
stuff.
try to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's do this again.
Do I have to come to North Carolina to do it?
No, actually, we can do this remotely. I will train you.
Let's do
I was
it.
going to say, sorry, hon, I have to go back to North Carolina.
Yeah. Well,
No.
it works easier if you're here.
That's true. But thank you for
Happy
having
birthday, Christy.
me. Happy birthday.
Thank you all.
We love you.